Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Mukam karoti vacharam pangum nangayate girim. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Small request. Any cell phone which may happen to be in your pocket or close to you, kindly put it to rest. Silent mode or whatever. Yeah. It would be nice, since today is our first session, to kind of, cell phone tend to take us away from Bhagavatam class and other seminars. Yes?
We make notes on the phone. Is it okay?
If you can make notes?
I generally.
Yes, you can make notes. You can take notes. Great. Yes.
On phone.
On phone? Oh.
Is it okay?
Yeah, as long as your phone doesn't ring. Yeah. Idea is to avoid unnecessary distraction. Yeah. So, as I was just mentioning a little bit, it'd be nice to just, it's good for me to know a little bit of who is here. And so maybe just very briefly, everyone can just take a few seconds, give your name, where you're from, and basically what you're doing, if you're connected with the temple or having some work outside, whatever. And we can begin with our host, Ram Govind Babu. Yes, Krishna.
My name is Ram Govinda Das. Karmi name is Ramanand Borse. I am associated with ISKCON for last 21 years, and I am executing Brahman Seva in the altar at the moment in the temple. And then I am associated with Maharaj for Varnashram project, along with Anandigram, which is being situated in Rone village, and our upcoming Gurukul. It is not at the moment Gurukul, but it is getting form of Gurukul, which is at Ravit by name Govardhan Ashram.
Okay. We don't have a traveling microphone, do we? Anyways, it should be all right, yeah.
Somebody has to.
Yeah.
Vocal cord has to be.
Yes.
My name is Sachin Krishna Daire. I'm from Nasik. In present moment, I joined a BT ashram, a training brahmachari ashram.
Okay.
I joined ISKCON last 9 years.
Last 9 years. You've been in training for the last 9 years.
No, 2 years in training.
Okay.
But I joined 2016.
2016.
So he is connected with ISKCON since 2016.
Okay.
We started training officially 2 years back.
Yes.
In Brahmachari Ashram.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
My name is Mohan West. I am currently a computer student, final year.
Okay.
I'm living in Giri Govardhan Bridge, and I am connected in ISKCON since 4 years.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
My name is Himanshu Riva Kamble. I am doctor practicing in government hospital. I
Okay.
am connected to ISKCON since last 4 years. I
Okay.
am connected to ISKCON Juhu.
ISKCON
Juhu.
Juhu. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Srikanth. I'm from Hyderabad.
Okay.
My job shifted here. I'm staying in Mayapur West. I'm connected.
You're from Hyderabad working here.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm connected to ISKCON since 2019.
Okay.
And I'm working as a design engineer.
Huh?
Design engineer.
Oh, it's a design engineer. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. My name is Prasad Ananda Tambe. I'm from Pune. I'm working as a farm manager in mushroom production.
Farm manager.
Yeah,
Okay.
in mushroom production. And now, just 3 months ago, I started here in ISKCON.
Okay. We like farmers. We like farmers.
Yeah. Actually, I completed my education in BSc Agriculture.
Okay. Okay. We'll talk to you later. Yes.
Shri Sachinandan Das.
We met this morning.
Yes.
But anyway, go ahead.
I serve here as a counselor, as a temple services, and then we also have our World Ashram
Project, yes. Which has been ongoing for the last how many years?
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
8 years. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Krishna Maharaj. My name is Ajay Warkhade. I'm from Buldhana.
From?
Buldhana district.
Okay.
Maharashtra. I'm connected last 4 years.
4 years. What do you do?
I'm teaching flute, musician.
Acha, Varnashram College. Okay. We'll sign you up too also. Okay, very good. Yes, and yes.
My name is Swapnil Kire. I am connected with ISKCON since last 15 years now.
Okay.
And I am also right now providing my services in Govardhan Ashram Gurukul.
Okay. We met this morning.
This morning.
Correct. Yes. Okay.
Nandakishore Das. I'm small businessman.
Okay.
Connected to ISKCON since 22 years. Sorry, 27 years.
Okay. Here in Pune. In Pune.
I was connected with ISKCON Juhu
Juhu.
and got some training in ISKCON Chowpatty.
Okay.
Before Corona, we shifted here.
Yes.
COVID.
Corona landmark.
He works on waste management.
Waste management. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Trading some Panchagara products
Panchagara products.
and composting units I sell.
Yes.
I
Okay.
also do career guidance.
Yeah.
In journey of professional discovery. Pranash.
Okay. I know the words can go on and on. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Myself, Ashwarya. First of all, very glad to have your association. I'm second year engineering student.
Okay. From originally?
I'm from Buldhana. My native town is Buldhana.
From where?
Buldhana.
It's in Maharashtra.
District
West of
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra.
Acha.
East of Maharashtra.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
My name is Namdev. I am from Latur. I am glad to meet you. Now I have recently joined the ISKCON. Now I am pressing in DY Patil College in final year MCA.
Final year. Okay. What you will do after? What will you do after you graduate? Not decided.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. Yeah, you.
Usually I'm nearby from Russia. I don't know, I'm maybe traveling maybe
He's Yuri from Russia. He's traveling as usual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Actually, Yuri just joined our small team of devotees 10 days back or something, approximately. 2 weeks already. Yeah, 2 weeks back. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna. My name is Sachin Damle. Currently, I am serving in Gurgaon.
Okay.
Morning.
Okay. Yes. Others?
My name is Prempriya Devidasi. We were connected with ISKCON in 1997.
Mm.
And currently I'm working with Govardhan Ashram.
Okay. Yes.
My name is Monica Swapnil Khire. I'm connected to ISKCON since last 15 years.
Mm.
And I'm also connected with Govardhan Ashram.
Okay. We have quite a few representatives from Govardhan Ashram. Yes, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
I am Siddhi Tamle. From last 4 years I am ISKCON travel.
Yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna. My name is Geeta Tamle. I am connected to ISKCON since last 11 years.
Yes.
I'm an acupressure therapist and some other healing treatment I do.
Okay.
And I want to do something related to farming.
Farming. Okay. You've come to the right place. Very good. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My name is Preeti Gopika Devidasi. I am connected to ISKCON since 2002. And I'm housewife.
Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Myself Anasuya Devidasi. We're from Assam. We moved to Ravet last July.
Okay.
Doing just a housewife.
Okay. What do you mean just a housewife? A couple of devotees came in. You're a well-known personality, but still, yeah. Srinath Prabhu?
I'm Srinath Das I'm connected to ISKCON NVCC. I'm staying now in ISKCON Saswat. And I'm taking care of Goshala and 2 youth projects there.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Someone else came with you? Ah, yes.
Myself is Paramananda Puridas. I'm staying in ISKCON Saswat currently. I'm taking care of the Bhakti Vriksha programs.
Taking care of?
Bhakti Vriksha programs.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
So I'll briefly introduce Maharaj also. His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Swami Maharaj, born to French Canadian Roman Catholic parents in the province of Ontario, that is in Canada.
Can you just summarize that, you know?
So Maharaj, since beginning he has been attracted towards spirituality, and through his younger years he was seeking the knowledge, and eventually he came to Sanatana Dharma. He got initiated Srila Prabhupada in Canada itself. Thereafter he came to India and he preached in West Bengal. He started Namahatta programs and youth preaching services in West Bengal, extensively traveling. And now he has established many farm communities, because he stresses 3 matas: Go Mata, Bhu Mata and Saraswati Mata. If these are taken care, then these materials for Dharma is completed, and then we can advance to spirituals for Dharma. So more will be covered in Dharma Shastri, but his heart is towards the village life and establishing Varnashram Dharma, especially in village conditions. So we'll get to know more about this in Dharma Shastri.
Okay.
He has done his PhD in Vedic sociology. He has covered about 108 villages, and he carried out extensive survey, and through questionnaires he could get a lot of information about the villages, and he has thorough knowledge about Indian villages as of now, and he will be sharing this in this Dharma Shastri.
Thank you. So once again, thank you for being here. And it goes back a good number of years when we thought it would be important for devotees to maybe get a bit more of a in-depth insight on a word that we hear all the time, the word Dharma. It's not anything new. And within our ISKCON society, as you know, we, since many years, have been having courses on Bhakti Shastri. We will excuse you because you were not here when we made the announcement, but I will make the announcement again. Anyone having a cell phone, kindly turn it off. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yes. So, over the years, I've met devotees who had completed their Bhakti Shastri, and I would often, out of curiosity, ask them, did any of your teachers speak about Varnashram in your Bhakti Shastri course? And most of the time it was no, and some of the times yes, but in a very negative way. It was like the impression that at least some of the students with whom I spoke to, what they could understand was that Varnashrama is something really not so much important. We are, after all, part of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Bhakti movement, Bhakti cult. It's referred to as, and that is the most important. Along those lines, I'm sure many of you have heard a similar argument. So this brought me to try and present the subject matter of Dharma trying to balance, so to speak, what, as will be coming out in the course, two very fundamental and essential components of Dharma that generally we miss or we don't sufficiently understand. Definitely, no one will argue that we are, intimately, directly connected with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has especially focused and emphasized the whole aspect of bhakti. As a matter of fact, as we know, he deputed his most intimate associates, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, to extract, isn't it, from our Vedic literatures, all things in relation to bhakti, which is actually the essence of spiritual life. Not only the essence, but actually the culmination of all spiritual teachings. And it's not to minimize this aspect, which is very much central to our movement, to the Krishna consciousness movement as we know it, and as established by our founder Acharya. At the same time, as we all know, those who have read more thoroughly Srila Prabhupada's books and heard his various lectures and conversations, Prabhupada spoke also quite extensively about Varnashrama Dharma. So basically, today I want to give kind of an introduction. We basically have 3 seminars to cover. The second is tomorrow, I believe, and then the day after, like that. So yeah, one day for the next 3 days. So today I'll be putting it on the screen here, and as I make the presentation, devotees, you can feel free to raise your hand if there's something that you'd like some clarification on, like that. The purpose and the hope in presenting this particular seminar that I have entitled as Dharma Shastri is to present these what I call features, two essential features of Dharma that are generally less known and definitely less understood. And the more we can learn about these two aspects of Dharma, and especially how to harmonize them in our individual personal lives as well as within society in general, and in dealing with persons who may not yet be devotees, this balancing of these two aspects of Dharma will be very, very helpful. Not only helpful, but I would say very much needed if we want to actually succeed in introducing Srila Prabhupada's mission, and if we want to help fulfill the vision that our founder Acharya has given to all of us. So there are 5 PowerPoints. I will cover 2 of them today, maybe 2.5, and we'll just try to go through the presentations here to make some, let's say, essential points. All this information is actually very much to help bring about what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also known to be a social reformer, isn't it? Way back 500 years ago. And one of the objectives stated by our founder Acharya in terms of what was one of the goals of our society was to bring about, just to quote directly Srila Prabhupada, complete overhaul within society, and specifically to revert to the system of Varna and Asrama. So this is an overview of the 4 PowerPoints that are coming up. One of the important verses that I bring up, actually at the beginning of every presentation, is the one that we find in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. Dharma mulam hi bhagavan sarva vedamayo harihi smritam shatabidam rajan yena chatma prasidati. This is Canto 7, chapter 11, verse 7, which translates as follows: the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, the root of all religious principles, and the memory of great authorities. O King Yudhisthira, this principal religion is to be understood as evidence. On the basis of this religious principle, everything is satisfied, including one's mind, soul, and even one's body. This is very closely connected with a well-known verse in the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Jato Bhakti Radhoksaji Ahaituki Pratihata Yagatma Suprasidati. When we actually understand about Dharma and apply these principles of Dharma, then all of our different necessities of life, be they material, emotional, etc., are satisfied. Yeah. Hare Krishna. I very strongly recommend devotees to read the purport actually to this verse, which is touching on some of the points we're trying to make in our presentation in terms of addressing both the material and spiritual dimension of life. Yeah. So we are in the introduction. That's the first PowerPoint. The second one will be dealing. No, rather, the introduction is the next PowerPoint. Yeah, this is an overview. One PowerPoint will be dealing specifically on Varnashrama Dharma, another one on Bhagavad Dharma, and then 4 practical application. Naturally, as devotees, we want to understand how we can, in our daily lives and in our respective temples, apply these principles that refer to both Varnashrama Dharma and Bhagavad Dharma. And there are important books of reference. Some of these books are here actually, as well as some websites which you can, we'll make it available later on, but that's part of the sort of presentation, yeah. So in the introduction, which will be the next PowerPoint, we're going to be looking at some of these different aspects, terminology, Sanatan Dharma in 2 features, concepts of Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, and some key principles. And the same will be there in terms of books and whatnot. And in Varnashrama Dharma, this is what we'll be looking at. We'll probably, we'll be doing that tomorrow. ISKCON's 4 movements, something that is important to understand historically. Even before Srila Prabhupada went to the Western countries, what was Prabhupada's vision in terms of how to introduce? Number 2, the role of Dvijas, or twice born. And number 3, we can only properly understand Varnashrama Dharma if we have some basic understanding of what is called Chatur Vidya. I occasionally mention this, and we'll go a bit more into depth regarding that. So that will be tomorrow's seminar. And then day after tomorrow, we'll be covering Bhagavad Dharma. And these are the different topics. Bhagavad Dharma basically dealing with the subject matter of tattva. Tattva is the essence and the focus that our acharyas elaborate upon, and it's essential for devotees who want to preach to know clearly. Yeah. And then in the last seminar, day after tomorrow, some practical applications for ISKCON in general, for our city temples, for our rural projects, for individuals, and for general society. So like this, this is an overview of what we will be looking at in the days to come. Books of reference, I'll just bring them up right now. Maybe we can, these are 7 particular references which I highly recommend devotees who want to know more about the subject matter, especially of of Varnashrama Dharma. Chapter 11 to 15 of the 7th canto. The second book of reference called Gita Nagari. Anyone here has read this essay, Gita Nagari? Anyone? Okay. It's in the folio. Who has access to what is called the database or folio? Who knows what the folio is? Who doesn't know what the folio is? Okay, folio or database, it's called database. All of Prabhupada's books, letters, conversations are available on one disk or whatever you call it, and it's used quite extensively. If somebody wants to do some research, it makes it very easy. So this essay, Gita Nagari, which has not yet been printed, is in the database. And then speaking about Varnashrama, is it there? Yes, it's there. Speaking about Varnashrama, basically most of the quotations given by Srila Prabhupada on the subject matter of Varnashrama. Number 5, make Vrindavan villages. 6, modernity is killing civilization. 7, Vedic Vaishnav view of sociology. Yeah. So there are different websites also. Later on, I'll just share these, and you can in your leisure time, you can go to some of these websites. So we're mentioning a little earlier, this is in terms of terminology, of course, for us as devotees, the very word Dharma is very crucial to understand. The title here is of this presentation is Dharma Shastri, and yes. What is the definition of Dharma? I think for most devotees it's quite clear. Dharma is what is referred to as our natural, isn't it, identity, what is original and natural. What we generally, when we speak about Dharma, we generally refer to what is the spiritual nature, our spiritual nature, what is our original spiritual nature. We think less about what is our, we could say, original material nature in terms of how we should be living within society. And of course, this whole presentation is meant to make that difference. Dharma means different things. Recently I was mentioning how I think the chief minister of UP made a declaration how India's national religion is Sanatana Dharma. Anyone read this? Yeah, he made a statement just a few days ago apparently that India's religion is Sanatana Dharma. Is that a correct statement? With diverse opinions. The reason I ask is Srila Prabhupada has made a very clear distinction, isn't it, between religion and dharma. And because he made this difference, and because it's important for us as followers of Srila Prabhupada to understand this difference very clearly, then so many people more easily will actually take up what we call the path of Dharma as opposed to religion, because there's a major difference. So Dharma is, as Prabhupada often would explain, is something that is not meant to change, because it's based on science actually. It is based on eternal concepts and principles that actually have no beginning. That's why it's called Sanatan, eternal. Whereas religion generally is referred to something that has a particular beginning in history. Somebody established this particular, like Christianity or Buddhism or Islam. It has been established at a particular time in the history. And generally, those instructions from within that particular religion have been given to those persons receiving the knowledge at that particular time. In other words, it is related to Dharma, but you cannot equate it with Dharma. So it's important for us as devotees. I mean, eventually, it's like Prabhupada, he wanted that actually in every country of the world, those who are leaders, they should follow the principles of Dharma. What religion they will practice is somewhat secondary. In other words, Prabhupada was not in favor and not supporting the idea that that in different countries, leaders proclaim or follow what is called the secular way of life. There should be. This is very fundamental for us as followers of Sanatana Dharma. That every country, every leader who claims to be a proper leader should actually understand and try to implement the various principles of Dharma as opposed to religion. So when somebody says that the national religion of India is Sanatana Dharma, it's confusing. And most likely it is confusing to most people. So, let's see here. So Dharma, because you're all devotees, so you already have some good understanding of this. Shastri, of course, is one, all of us as students who want to further deepen our understanding of the subject matter. So therefore, the title Dharma Shastri is there. Now we come to one reference from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada explains how the institution which gives such training, preparation for the next life, is called Varnashrama Dharma, or the system of Sanatana Dharma. Actually, Prabhupada very often will equate Varnashrama Dharma with Sanatana Dharma. So the question can be raised, is Varnashrama Dharma actually something eternal? I'll ask the question again. Whether, in your understanding, whether Varnashrama Dharma is something eternal or temporary? Huh?
Eternal.
Why is it eternal?
beyond life, this life. It is not only related to this life, and life is going to go on. Even after this life, you will be taking next life, and there also the same principles will be applicable to you. So that in that way.
Yes. Varnashrama Dharma, although it is material, it is based on eternal principles. Yeah. Just like like in the Bhagavad Gita also, we know that there are five basic tattvas, one of them being prakriti, which means material nature, and prakriti is one out of the five. Then prakriti is one of the four that is eternal principle, isn't it? So prakriti, of course, is directly or intimately connected with varnashrama dharma also, because varnashrama is based on the gunas, the modes of material nature, and prakriti is dealing with the three modes of material nature. So these are, of course, again, quite well known by our devotees, the four social and the four spiritual orders of society. Again, that's quite elaborately presented by Narada Muni in the seventh canto of the Bhagavatam. Yes. One word briefly about the word Daiva. Daiva Varnashrama is more recently used, the word Daiva, by our more recent acharyas, beginning from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Basically, there are two types of Varnashrama. One which our acharyas refer to as Daiva Varnashrama, where the center of the focus is a spiritual emancipation, and specifically Krishna, or the activity or the process of devotional service. And anything else which is not having that element of bhakti or devotion or Krishna, then that is that falls in another category that is generally referred to as Asuric Varnashrama. And there are many shades or varieties. And just briefly here also from Srila Prabhupada's statement, this is called Bhagavad Dharma, to understand this philosophy that God is the Supreme Master and I am His eternal servant. My duty is to serve God, that's all. Yeah. So of course, another important reference that is generally identifying what we call spiritual Swadharma. Here I equate pretty well Bhagavad Dharma with spiritual Swadharma. The spiritual Swadharma of every living entity, as mentioned here, is to actually be engaged in Krishna's service. Yeah. So, two levels of bhakti that we read about, of course, in the Nectar of Devotion. Mixed bhakti, which is at the level of sadhana, and pure bhakti, which is at the level of spontaneous devotional service. Yes. And the Varnas, we're all quite familiar with the Varnas, as well as the ashrams. Generally, the age is given, student life for brahmacharis, generally up to the age of 20 or 25. householder life, retired life, and renounced life. This is, as we know, Krishna's scientific arrangement for the. So, trying to explain a little bit about this, these eternal features of Sanatana Dharma, comparing what we could call material on the left side here. Varnashrama Dharma refers to what is called material Swadharma, as opposed to spiritual Swadharma. Varnashrama Dharma is for those who are in the material world, who are still to some extent or other connected with the modes of material nature, whereas pure spiritual Swadharma is for those who are generally in the spiritual world, or they may be in the material world but totally disconnected with the modes of material nature. Yes. So these are a few of the characteristics or differences between these two aspects of Sanatana Dharma. Yes. These concepts of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana are important to understand. These we find especially when we speak. Actually, it's one of the main features that is presented by acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and these deal especially more so with, let's say, our spiritual Swadharma. So we won't get into that right now. So let's see. Yes. Here are some key principles that differentiate and identify these two levels of dharma. On the one side, Varnashrama Dharma, which is more in terms of our material situation and what we should be doing, as opposed to Bhagavad Dharma. These are just a few references that Prabhupada brings up at different times. For example, at times misunderstood. I'm not sure if you have come across this, but Prabhupada very often will state how first consideration in human society is food. First is food, which needs to be understood properly. It doesn't mean that our first preoccupation is to eat. But first is food means our first preoccupation should be how to produce the basic necessities of life, and one of the most basic daily necessity of life is food, isn't it? So, in other words, the Vedic culture, through the system of Varnashrama, helps in a more simple and easy way to address this particular necessity which is there within each and every human being. Another important statement that Prabhupada often would make is first his character, which when we look at the whole educational aspect within Vedic culture, Vedic education, in particular Gurukula, even within Gurukula, where academics are the focus, before even taking up academics, most important is what is called a character formation. That's the whole topic in itself, of course. So these are just some key principles which somebody can put this fan on, maybe. That fan is working. Yeah. In the material world, medium. Yeah. In the material world, our ideal in terms of what should be the lifestyle for individuals, we find in Vrindavan or Gokula. And that is, of course, a replica of what is existing in the spiritual world called Goloka. In other words, Vedic culture, Krishna, when he descends in the material world, he displays what is eternally taking place, isn't it, in the spiritual world, particularly in Goloka, Vrindavan. And he manifests that lifestyle in Vrindavan to show us, to demonstrate to us simultaneously the spiritual as well as the material dimension of life. Naturally, as devotees, when we think of Vrindavan, or if we plan to go on a pilgrimage to Vrindavan, we think about Krishna's different pastimes and Krishna's loving exchanges with his devotees, etc. We think much less about how the residents of Vrindavan are living in terms of meeting their different needs or necessities of life. So in other words, something important which is practically unknown in modern day society is that Krishna, especially through, we can understand, should be able to understand this more through this whole arrangement that Krishna has created, the social arrangement of Varna and Asrama, based on the activities that are generally taking place in such a village as Vrindavan. It's either all or nothing. He got it in between? Okay, thank you. Yes, you came at the right time. Krishna sent you. Yeah. Prabhupada often he repeats different themes or uses different expressions. I'm just trying to convey that behind these simple expressions, a few more will be there, and I'm sure there are many others as well. They are like mantras, or they are like they're very symbolic. Just a few words. There's a whole meaning behind it, isn't it? Like first his character, it's a whole mental disposition. It's a whole approach, which in modern day society, within our educational system, is very much absent. Because in modern day education, we give emphasis to different subjects and memorizing different facts and figures, etc., like that. we give less importance to the aspect of character formation. Yes, agriculture as best economy, which is which is something we'll look at a bit more in detail in terms of the Vedic sciences. Vedic culture is very is very scientific in its in its way of doing, or is based on very simple concepts, which, if we can properly understand, then we can more easily introduce this lifestyle that is being advocated and promoted, especially in the example of the residents of Vrindavan. And of course, comfort of cows, more important, Prabhupada actually mentions in the Bhagavatam. I don't have the exact verse, but Prabhupada mentions that comfort of cows is more important than that of the Brahmanas, just to emphasize how cows in the Vedic culture are an absolute necessity, are absolutely essential. It is unimaginable for the residents of Vrindavan. And of course, it's not just because of the residents of Vrindavan. Any village in India which is, let's say, following the basic principles of Dharma, cannot properly function as a village if cows are not actually there and seen and understood by the residents of that village as absolutely essential for the actual survival of that village. This may not be something that we can understand immediately. One of the statements also by Srila Prabhupada, produce only what you need. A very profound statement, which for which there's a whole understanding or philosophy behind, which is totally unknown in modern day society, because people rather do the opposite, right? Modern day agriculture, to give an example, they are, which means a majority of people who are caught up in modern day agriculture, they produce for the purpose of selling, isn't it? Which is not actually the proper understanding of what agriculture is meant to be. So these are two important principles. The other one that follows here: use only what you produce. These are key principles that all of us need to think about and meditate upon, and try to understand the whole significance as to why these statements are made. And of course, I think gradually more devotees will come or should come to understand how land and cows and localized living are the basis of our Vedic culture as well. which is exactly what is taking place in the spiritual world. Yes, and of course the the whole. See, none of this will be very much meaningful. This whole presentation won't have any meaning if one does not accept one of the basic aspects, let's say, of the Vedic culture, which is that the primary purpose of life actually is to strive for self-realization, isn't it? and then we mold our lives in such a way that it will favor this primary goal and objective of life, which is self-realization. I think I will begin the presentation on, let's say, specifically on Varnashrama Dharma, but only one portion, which hopefully can bring in another dimension or aspect, which may be less known by most devotees today within our society. But maybe before that, in whatever we've presented, let's see. Yes, okay. This is actually the main presentation here that hopefully can shed some light on what we're trying to underline. Yes. As I was mentioning earlier, these are the three aspects which will be covered, and I'm just going to address the first one, and we'll keep the rest for tomorrow, and tomorrow especially deal with the more aspects in terms of Varnashrama Dharma, why it is so important for all of us, including and in many ways, especially for those who are in our city temples. And then, but for now, I'll take maybe 10 minutes because I want to leave some time also for some discussion on some of these points. Yeah. If somebody was to tell you that Srila Prabhupada envisioned, and he wrote down actually, in this essay which not many are familiar with, the essay called Gita Nagari, he wrote down his vision of how the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be introduced. And so many years later, he, upon leaving India, actually introduced in 4 specific phases this mission that Prabhupada actually called 4 movements. Who knows about, I know a few devotees know about 4 movements. Who has heard about these 4 movements that Prabhupada speaks about? Okay, except those who are attending seminars regularly. I think it's good to bring it on the screen so that it will be more easy to follow. So again, it's from this essay Gita Nagari, which contains all kinds of important information in addition to this vision of how to introduce the Sankirtan mission, there's important information about education as well, and other information, yes. Prabhupada spoke of 4 specific, you could call it phases. He actually gave the word movements. The first of those movements, Prabhupada called it Sankirtan movement, in reference to specifically 2 things: the chanting of the holy name and transcendental literatures. This is how Lord Chaitanya began his movement, isn't it, in Navadvip 5,000 years ago, by going out in the streets of Navadvip and chanting the holy name. This is how Srila Prabhupada also in New York went to Thompson Square Park and started chanting Hare Krishna, right? So this is the first of 4 movements, which is still very active and important within our society. The second movement Prabhupada called Temple Worship Movement, which is specifically establishing temples where we have beautiful deities, where people who either get a book or hear about the holy name, want to know more, they come to a place where they can actually have darshan of the Lord. The third movement, Prabhupada called it spiritual initiation movement. Those who are fortunate to come in contact with devotees, to hear the holy name, or to get a book, to come to the temple. Those who are a bit serious, they take up the spiritual life in a very systematic way, to the point that they want to fully dedicate themselves, and they want to take initiation and become part officially of, Krishna's spiritual family. These 3 are still very prominent and very much alive within our ISKCON society, practically in all of our city temples especially. The fourth one, Prabhupada called it, and it's initially possibly a little misleading, but this is the name that Prabhupada gave, Classless Society Movement. Just to help us massage our brain a little bit to understand what does that mean. Classless Society Movement. And I mean, just very briefly, it is in reference to, because we cannot actually do without, the 4 social as well as the 4 spiritual orders of society, means the 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas. However, members of either of the varnas or ashramas, they are all focused on the same goal and objective, which is that of serving Krishna, of engaging in devotional service to Krishna. So when there is one center, one focus of attention, then naturally there will be harmony. When that focus is not there, and that to a large extent has been the problem with the whole system of varnashrama since not only many years, not only since many decades, but actually since many centuries. Unfortunately, I mean, we are living in Kali Yuga, and the whole system, which is actually a perfect system. Otherwise, why would Prabhupada give the title, again in the 7th canto, Perfect Society? Ideal family life, perfect society, perfect social divisions, perfect spiritual divisions. Krishna, when he creates perfectly, because he's perfect and complete, isn't it? So not only is the spiritual world perfect and complete, but also the material world. And it's only to those who are fortunate to be introduced to that perfect system isn't it? It's just like, how many people in the world know about bhakti? How many people know that bhakti is actually the professional stage, the topmost yoga system? There's nothing beyond, actually. It's very few. And we all know how also it is not so easy to come to that perfectional stage of pure devotional service, although we read about it all the time, and all of our acharyas very elaborately speak on the subject matter. The subject matter is very deep and very confidential. What we need to try and understand is that because Krishna, in creating the whole spiritual dimension of life, from the whole spiritual world, the whole process of bhakti, devotional service, what is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita as Daivi Prakriti, isn't it? In a similar way, this material creation is perfectly made, and because it is very perfectly and very scientifically made, it is not so easily understood. I mean, so many scientists, so many things they don't understand about, the workings of the material universe, etc. We don't have to go beyond this planet. I mean, on our own planet, where we are all living, I mean, we can even begin with this, our own body. What do we know about this body? Isn't it? The whole material creation is very involved. And the majority of us know very little about the workings of this material energy of Krishna. But it is very intricate, very scientific, and everything that Krishna does, and everything Krishna has, let's say, instructed regarding how to deal with this material energy is, unless we study that, unless we know that, then we will not be successful in doing even so-called material things. And the proof and the evidence of this is what is happening in the world today, isn't it? We have so many universities, we have so many educated people, we have so many scientists. There's never been as many scientists today in history of the whole world, and yet we have made a royal mess of our planet and the lives of people in general, isn't it? The health of most people is very poor. The mental condition and the planet itself, etc. We need to understand, especially as devotees, why this is so, isn't it? We need to begin to understand that actually Krishna has formulated within the pages of the Vedic literatures, in particular Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures, has given us the proper knowledge and information that if we properly learn it and apply it, then we will avoid the kind of complexities and difficult situation in which we find ourselves today. And all of that is directly connected with the whole system of Varna and Asrama, which is something we'll be looking at more in detail tomorrow in terms of specific sciences that is meant to make up society, isn't it? So I want to keep that for tomorrow because that's a whole, let's say, discussion in itself. Um, but I wanted to especially try and emphasize how Krishna has a whole plan. Our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada also has a whole plan for reintroducing our Vedic culture, and we will not be successful in doing that unless we understand these two dimensions of what the Vedic culture is all about. Again, the spiritual aspect, which we generally more easily understand and follow in terms of the process of devotional service, bhakti, the bhakti element, we could say. But this other dimension, which especially for those who are not living in villages, of course, even so many people are living in villages, but they are not getting the proper guidance. Most people most farmers today, as we know, are caught up in the modern way of agro-business and also have all kinds of misconceptions in terms of why they keep cows, and if cows don't give milk, then they're no longer useful, which is not the Vedic proper way of understanding, isn't it? So in other words, there's a whole, when we speak of Vedic culture, when we speak of even Vaishnava culture, we need to understand these two dimensions, which both are very profound in nature, and which require actually some time to properly understand. And unless we develop some basic understanding of both of these aspects or dimensions of Dharma, then it will be very difficult, or I would say will not be possible for us to actually implement what our founder Acharya instructed, and for that matter, we will not be able to implement what is being recommended, in the Shastra. What Prabhupada is recommending in the context of Varnashrama Dharma is directly, obviously, from the Shastra. Prabhupada is not inventing anything new here. But unless we as devotees, we have, in other words, we have this dual role and responsibility to understand more thoroughly these two dimensions of Dharma. I will stop here for now. Tomorrow we will get more into the Varnashrama Dharma in terms of the educational aspect. We'll be dealing with Gurukul subject matters about Varnashram College and what are those basic sciences which most of us are less familiar with, but that Prabhupada wanted us to introduce specifically in the context of, he spoke of establishing Varnashram colleges for that purpose, and hopefully that can bring about some exchange or discussion as to what it is, and it's only when we understand rather more clearly what it actually means, then we can begin to see how what steps we can take to actually begin to implement. So any thoughts or any questions on what we have tried to address so far in terms of the topics we've discussed? Yes.
There was one slide in the presentation, and the one point was that about the self-realization. Self-realization.
Self-realization.
Yeah, what was that?
Okay. What was self-realization?
Yeah, what was that point particularly?
Oh, well, that it was, as you may recall, on both columns. Yeah. In other words, when we speak of spiritual swadharma, Bhagavad Dharma, spiritual swadharma, the dharma of, or the objective or the goal on the spiritual level is self-realization, which culminates in, as we know, love of Krishna. So the point of self-realization within Varnashrama Dharma, it means that it is the same goal. In other words, this is nicely explained in the Mahabharata by Grandfather Bhishmadev when he begins to address Yudhishthira Maharaj. He actually begins explaining the importance of this system that Krishna has created for all of humanity, the system of Varna and Ashrama. And Srila Prabhupada nicely explains in the very beginning of that purport that this particular instruction of Grandfather Bhishmadev, I mean, he's on his bed of arrows, he's about to leave his body, yet he's speaking about something that seems to be secondary or material. So Prabhupada makes a point in the first sentence of that purport that Grandfather's Bhishmadev's reference to Varna and Ashrama, we should try to understand. It is Krishna's, we could say, gift to mankind, whereby those who are fortunate to receive this knowledge, to understand its meaning and its importance, that whole, although it is a material arrangement, isn't it? The Varnas in particular is a material arrangement, but meant to accelerate our ability to actually become self-realized. In other words, this material arrangement of Varnashrama, which is a social institution, but it's what we need to understand as devotees, it is the perfect social institution because it's created by Krishna. There are so many other social institutions that have come and gone or that exist even now, whether it is socialism or communism or capitalism, etc. Here we're talking about a system that Krishna has created. And the goal of that system is the same, meant to help us actually reach that level of self-realization. The word that Prabhupada uses in that purport, very interestingly enough, is that Prabhupada says that system is meant to accelerate our ability to develop spiritual qualities that will help us become self-realized. In other words, Krishna is giving us a process, a system, which is actually very, very similar to, Krishna when he speaks to Arjuna about spiritual, about yoga. about spirituality, Krishna is telling him that actually this subject matter, this jnanam, this knowledge I'm giving to you is very confidential. I'm speaking to you this knowledge, which is bhaktu sime sakachit rahasyam hitadutamam. Bhaktu sime sakachiti, because you're my devotee, my friend, I am revealing to you this very confidential and mysterious knowledge. The point I'm trying to make is that not only is spiritual subject matter mysterious and confidential, Krishna's material nature, Krishna's material energy, Krishna's varnashrama system is also hidden. It's like, we read about and we hear how Krishna Prem is like the topmost level that we're all aspiring for, but we know how it's not so easily attainable, and it's a very deep subject matter. The point I'm trying to make is that Krishna's so-called material system of varnashrama has similar features. I mean, it's practically, because it is also very scientific, and it is going over our head. We'll see tomorrow when we speak about education in particular, or when we speak about economics, because these are two of the four sciences. These are two of the four standard eternal sciences that make up varnashrama. For those living entities who are in the material world and who want to actually perfect themselves, Krishna has given us these four sciences, which unless we take up a particular training, unless we study thoroughly over a number of years, we will not understand. In Gurukul, that's why we were discussing a little earlier, Gurukul generally is meant, Prabhupada explains also, for a very few, small percentage, for the Brahmanas. Because the subject matter is very vast and very deep, very profound. Of course, ultimately, the science of bhakti is open to everyone, and ultimately it is our nature. It is the nature of every living entity, isn't it, to develop and to realize this whole aspect of bhakti, or a love of Krishna. And there's a whole scientific method or process which is explained by our acharyas. And obviously our acharyas have focused especially on the bhakti element. And most of us, we are more comfortable, so to speak, with the bhakti aspect. But Srila Prabhupada, who is a self-realized soul, not only Srila Prabhupada, but also previous acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because we have such a broken situation, the whole of society is broken, society is malfunctioning very badly. And these sciences which are presented in our Shastra are totally misunderstood in modern day society. Although in the name of economy, every practically nation in the world is promoting economic development without knowing what actually is economic development. Every country is promoting education, and spending so much of money, some more, some less, but without actually knowing what is education. This is Maya, the world of Maya. So the proper understanding, the proper perspective can only be understood, realized, when it is, when we approach it as it is presented and given by our authorities, isn't it? And Srila Prabhupada in elaborating quite extensively this whole aspect of varnashrama was trying to bring us to that point, you see. And I know that it is not so easy to kind of even grasp the inner meaning behind various aspects connected with varnashrama, and it takes a little time. We have to give it a little bit of time also to begin grasping what is actually behind this whole dimension, so to speak, which is so much evading most of us, because we are totally physically, materially disconnected with some of the basic components that make up this this whole. Ultimately, it's a lifestyle and a mindset which can only be understood or realized when we are when we put ourselves in a particular kind of situation. Hopefully, when we get more into the educational aspect, that will be come a bit more clear. But it means basically, just to conclude on this point, that spiritual life, our daily activities of devotional service, aim to bring us to the topmost level of self-realization, and so that's on the spiritual level, and also how we are meant to live, how society is meant to be organized the different occupations we are meant to take up, the kind of education we should be also taking up, that is also meant to serve the same purpose of bringing us to that highest level of self-realization. Any other comment or yes?
On this slide, Maharaj, the fourth point is classless society movement.
Yes.
So, does Srila Prabhupada refer here as the misunderstood concepts of varna here as a class, like for example, which creates restrictions for such and such, like for example, we have Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So these are not considered as varna and considered as classes by people who understood it like that. Is it referring to that or something else?
Classless society, I tried to explain a few minutes ago. Classless society means the four varnas are there, the four ashramas are there. We cannot avoid. As long as we are in the material world, we're caught up and conditioned by the gunas, isn't it? The three modes of material nature. So varnashrama is connected with the three modes of material nature. Brahmanas are primarily the mode of goodness, isn't it? Like that. So, but classless society means that regardless of where we are in the social order, either as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, because we are all endeavoring to become devotees, because we are all accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because we're all learning the process of bhakti devotional service, anyone in any of those social orders can become a self-realized soul. Prabhupada explains how as Vaishnavas, we should regard varnashrama as like a drama, as like we are part of a play. That in this lifetime, I'm assuming the position of a Brahmana. I'm not actually a Brahmana, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. But because I'm living in the material world and society needs to function, some individuals play the role of a Brahmana, some play the role of a Kshatriya, like that. But we know internally that we are meant simply to be engaged in Krishna service. So with that kind of consciousness, mindset, everyone within that system who is sincerely endeavoring to practice Krishna consciousness can become a self-realized soul. So it is classless in that sense, that because when that focus is not there, and that unfortunately has been the history of Varnashrama throughout the history. Yeah, I mean, due to a false designation that's on the material level, we Brahmanas will tend to think themselves superior to others, etc. But one who is properly cultivating, regardless of which position he may assume within society, he remains, a servant of the servant of the servant. He develops that mood and mentality that, as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, isn't it? So Prabhupada uses that term classless society to indicate that we are not superior or inferior. We're just assuming temporarily during this lifetime a particular role so that society can function properly. And like the instruction Lord Chaitanya gave to Ramananda Rai, famous instruction, Kibavi Prak Kibanyasi Shudra Kenenoi, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hoy. Whoever knows and is cultivating the science of Krishna consciousness, then he can instruct others about the subject matter, regardless of one's social position within society. So that kind of understanding we need to have. Somebody else? Yes.
What I understood about Varnashram basically is that.
Basically, huh? Yes.
Because we are not on the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, we are on the sadhana platform, so we are trying to get ourselves classified in one of the Varna ashramas, so that we can perform bhakti and become self-realized. Is Varnashram only about that, trying to find out position in the Varna ashrama and practice bhakti according to that, so that we can become self-realized? Is Varnashram only about that, something more? And does Delya Varnashram again come to dissolve it? Like say that, okay, you can do all the sevas of all the different ashramas because you are in Krishna consciousness. So is there a contradiction?
Okay. I would say like this, in a temple situation, the consideration of Varnashrama will be different than outside of a temple. Because in a temple, regardless of who I may be, if there's a need to take up some particular service, I will do it. In general society, it becomes more necessary to actually have this kind of classification. I mean, to some extent it is there in a temple, but much less because the accent is simply on, pure, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. I mean, that's the goal, service to Krishna. So, as I tried to explain a little earlier in quoting Grandfather Bhishma Dev, the whole exercise or the whole system of Varna and Asrama is to facilitate and accelerate our becoming devotees of Krishna. Because in the Vedic system, again, it's in connection with one of the four sciences, agrarian culture, which brings us in contact with cows and lamb. Naturally, more easily, more quickly, helps us to come to the mode of goodness. The whole idea is to, of course, we want to go beyond the mode of goodness. Generally, to go beyond the mode of goodness, we need to first come to the mode of goodness. And therefore, Krishna's arrangement that we live in close contact with two special living entities, cows and brahmanas. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Cows and brahmanas are two essential living entities in the Vedic culture. Both of them are in the mode of goodness. And we are meant to associate with these two living entities especially so that we can more easily, more quickly come to the mode of goodness so that we can go beyond the mode of goodness. Isn't it? Yeah. So Varnashrama is simply to help that happen more easily, more simply, and more quickly. The goal is to bring us to the spiritual level. Here's an interesting quote, for example, from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He writes as follows in his Sajjana Toshani, that Varnashrama is for the Vaishnavas in their conditioned state. The system of Varna and Ashrama is for the Vaishnavas in their conditioned state. So, the same point that Prabhupada was making when having a discussion with one of his devotees who was kind of putting the point with Prabhupada, I thought we were just supposed to practice devotional service, chant the holy name, dance and take prasadam and go back home, back to Godhead. Varnashrama seems a little complicated. It's not something so much that Lord Chaitanya emphasized. And Prabhupada, so that the devotee was telling the point that, we are all practicing Vaishnavas, focused on bhakti, devotional service. And then Prabhupada, this is one of the many important quotes in this book speaking about Varnashram. Prabhupada says, it is not at all easy to be Vaishnava. To be a Vaishnava, we should not automatically assume that we have become Vaishnavas because we have tilak on the forehead and are holding a bead bag, isn't it? So in that conversation, Prabhupada practically, I believe in the next line, continues to speak and he says, in order for us to become Vaishnava, Varnashrama is necessary. Because Varnashrama is Krishna's perfect system. But we need to take the time to understand that system. It is Krishna's perfect system to help us rise from the lower modes of nature to the higher, at least the mode of goodness. And then in that mode of goodness, which is actually the fifth level, the nine levels of bhakti, from Shraddha to Prema. Nistha is the fifth level, steadiness. Steadiness means the mode of goodness. Prabhupada says mode of goodness means following the 4 rules and regulations. Strictly following the four rules and regulations brings one to the mode of goodness, isn't it? Then we can begin to practice devotional service, which will attract Krishna's attention and which will allow us to get Krishna's mercy to actually make further advancement. So the whole system of Varna and Ashrama is to help us come up. Yeah. Yes.
Asterisk, you mentioned that 50% of Srila Prabhupada's mission.
Yes. I didn't mention, Prabhupada mentioned.
Want to know more on that?
Huh?
Want to know more on that?
You want to know more on this? Read these books, you'll find so many. Prabhupada stated that establishing Varnashrama. Establishing Varnashrama means reviving Vedic culture. When we understand that Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian culture, well, if 95% of our devotees are living in cities, and if the Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian culture, how are we going to reestablish Vedic culture? Way back in 1968, Srila Prabhupada started his first farm community, New Vrindavan, in West Virginia, and he inspired devotees to begin other communities. These were meant to be a stepping stone towards what is the standard in terms of lifestyle, means village. Vedic culture can more completely and more comprehensively be understood and practiced in villages. Again, in the very beginning I was mentioning that our model is actually Vrindavan village. Because in Vrindavan village, the science of education is hidden. The science of economy is hidden. And unless we are attentive and sufficiently purified in consciousness, we won't get it. You see? So 50% of Prabhupada wanted, and that will come in the last section, I guess, practical application. Prabhupada wanted that we have our temples, not only that we have devotees trained to be preaching in our cities, but that we also train devotees who will not be in frontline preaching to be living in the country. Our cities are meant to be our preaching basis, whereas country is meant to be our living basis. Even as devotees, if we are not actually engaged in frontline preaching, we have no business in the city. But unfortunately, we're all in the city. We're all caught up because it's not at all an easy situation. The whole world, that's how things are going. But, the whole world is in Maya. Does that mean that we're also just going to follow Maya? No. We have this knowledge. We are meant to cultivate this knowledge. We are meant to understand what our Acharya is explaining. And we are meant to take the necessary steps to educate ourselves and to take the proper decision. Prabhupada is very, very clear on this point. Our presence in the cities is meant for preaching. Otherwise, if we're not preaching, we should not be in the cities. It's that simple. Easy enough to say, not so easy to act upon, but that's why, Prabhupada wanted so many years back, when he was physically present, that we establish Varnashram colleges so that we can begin to understand and begin to be trained systematically on how to actually revive Vedic culture. Some of this is not so easy to maybe fully accept or digest, but that's why it's important to read these specific instructions that are in this one particular book speaking about Varnashrama. "50 years ago, Prabhupada said, immediately in all of our ISKCON centers, in all of our ISKCON temples in the world, immediately establish Varnashram college." Where are the Varnashram colleges? Without giving our devotees that opportunity to learn systematically about this whole dimension, again, that's not to minimize, is to bring about this kind of balance that is lacking now, that is missing. We are very much the first three movements we are fine with, we understand. we become very expert. But the last one is like a big question mark, or a big headache, or whatever. Because it's taking us out of our, it's addressing more the material aspect of Dharma, which we know less about. I think our time was 7 o'clock. We're past it. Huh?
One question.
Oh, we didn't see you. Okay, yes.
Yeah, so last, this fourth movement which Srila Prabhupada mentioned. So, it's obvious that most of the devotees will be listening to Srila Prabhupada's lectures.
It's obvious that most of Prabhupada's devotees will listen. Yeah, Prabhupada lectures.
When the
Yes.
lectures or many of the writings.
Should be.
Yes.
Should be. I don't know how many are, but should be.
Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada mentions we are like a Brahmana in the society. Our movement is like a. So many of the devotees with maybe city or whatever, who are the devotees, they may be thinking we are already Brahmanical in the society. So as soon as this aspect comes, they means we have the fear in devotees might be having the fear in their heart that now I am categorized. I may not be a Brahmana. I may be a Shudra also. If the natural quality comes out or something, Vaishya, I may be. So they are little bothered. They have been categorized into other three also. So how
The devotees feel more comfortable being in the Brahmana category. Why rock the boat?
how is the conception is wrong among the devotees, the understanding, that's why they don't want to move to this fourth, as you told. Misconception due to that.
That definitely that is part of it, because it's like fear of the unknown, but that's a misunderstanding, as we tried to explain a little earlier. Srila Prabhupada's statement about classless society, regardless of the position we take on in society, we're all devotees, we're all aspiring devotees, we're all striving for self-realization. And we give respect, if we give respect to ants, we'll give respect to someone who may not be classified as a Brahmana or taken on that particular role of a Brahmana. There is definitely fear of the unknown, because there's so many things that are unknown for the, I would say, vast majority of our devotees regarding Varnashrama, and therefore the need to become educated, isn't it? Therefore the need for Varnashram colleges, so that our devotees can begin to understand what was Prabhupada's intent, and how actually on the long run this is best for us individually, and also how it is best for the whole of society. Because unless we more clearly understand, then we'll not be able to act on this, and part of that action, so to speak, is to help revive our villages in India, and understand how the Vedic culture has its roots actually in our villages. Vedic culture has its roots in cows. Vedic culture is a cow-based culture. Vedic culture is an agricultural-based culture, isn't it? Where the bhakti element is the basic foundation for all of us. And so it's a question of, we need to educate ourselves, and if that takes place, then whatever fear may be there will be alleviated. We may like to think that we are Brahmanas, those who have received second initiation, but we should have a clear, closer look as to what actually a Brahmana is, according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Brahmanas are not meant to take salaries. Brahmanas are meant to spend hours and hours daily in Shastra. How many Brahmanas do we have within our society is a good question. Okay, so thank you all very much. And I guess tomorrow at the same time, 5 o'clock, at the same place also. Sorry. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Bhakti Raghu Swami Maharaj ki Jai.